Hey YouTubers, welcome back. Welcome to video number 29 of Small Engines Questions and Answers. And I hope that everybody enjoyed the new intro that I have on my weekly series of Small Engines Q&A. So before I get started today, I'm just going to show you guys an old Frontier chainsaw. So this old saw was given to me in this condition. It's the same model that they used for some of the Husqvarna number 35 chainsaws. This is really old because the gas and the fuel cap are on the side like this. Usually they're on the top, and you can see it says Frontier automatic. It's usually around 35 cc's, this saw. It's got not too bad compression. It's not the greatest, so I might try to resurrect it one day and do some videos on getting it going again. I guess it's not too bad. So usually when you pick up an old saw like that, the first thing you should check is the compression. You can also do a compression test on it as well, and also make sure it's got spark before you start spending money into it, because those are the most expensive things to repair if they're broken. In one of my previous Q&A, I mentioned what can cause surging in your snowblower. Well, I forgot to mention a few things, and a YouTuber did bring to mind as well that if you have an air leak, it can cause surging as well, and he's right, and I'll show you what it is that could cause that. Now here's a snowblower carburetor here from a Tecumseh engine. So if your snowblower's engine looks like this at Tecumseh, your carburetor should be the same. Now usually when you get the bowl off of these carbs, you're going to see the O-ring here, and the thing that could be causing surging is if you've got corrosion inside the bowl here. What this could cause is an air leak, and when the engine's trying to suck fuel up, it could be losing air through here. Also, if the O-ring here is damaged, cracked, or expanded, it could cause an air leak there as well. You want to make sure that the O-ring is tight around the ridge here. Sometimes the O-ring is expanded and is not tight around the ridge here. And when you put the bulb back on, it's wiggling everywhere, and there's an air leak there, so it's not going to run right. So these are things that could be causing surging as well. Another YouTuber mentioned that you could also adjust the float, and I'll show you how to do that in another video. But most of the time the problems I come across is this problem here. And like I showed in the previous Q&A, make sure to clean the fixed jet at the bottom of your carb. If your carb has an adjusting screw underneath like this, like on the older carburetors, you want to make sure that all the little holes here are clean. Sometimes it'll go right across like this one, and then there'll be another little hole up here that needs to be cleaned. Now you can usually replace the bowl for around $5, and you can also buy this little kit here. It comes with the needle and seat, the O-ring, and the bowl nut gasket, and it's part 631021B. I do carry a lot of these in stock. You can usually buy them for around $5 or $6 a kit like that. You can also just replace the O-ring here, and it's part number 631028A from Tecumseh. I do carry a lot of these in stock because I'm constantly replacing them. And for the cost of these parts, you may as well replace them right off the bat, then you don't need to guess later on if that's causing you a problem. Now my next question today is regarding the snowblowers with the adjustable tilt chute. I may have answered this question in the past, but I'm going to show it again to you guys because I keep getting questions for it, and it's a common problem, easy to fix, and I'll show you how to do that on a snowblower here. So I'm talking about the snowblowers with the chute like that, that's what I mean. And as you can see here, you can adjust it. This is very handy if you've got neighbors. What happens sometimes is people adjust them down like this, and then when they get into the snow, it comes up on its own like that, and it throws off the direction of the snow. What usually causes that problem is that the carriage bolts on each side of the chute are a bit loose. So an easy solution to that is just tighten up the nuts about 1/4 inch. And you'd want to do this on both sides as well. Now you want to make sure that after you tighten up the nuts, you're still able to move the chute like this. If you've tightened up the nuts too much, what's going to happen is you won't be able to move it at all, so that's no good. So you're going to have to go back and forth, adjust the nuts until it's good for you. Then when you try it out in the snow, it shouldn't go back up. If it goes back up, then tighten up the nuts on each side just a bit more until the problem is solved. You can also spray liquid wrench inside here on each side so that it prevents wear and tear on the chute. Another question I get too, sometimes people ask me if there's anything they can do to maintain their snowblower starter to prevent wear and tear on it. Sometimes too, people go to use their snowblower starter, it'll spin, but it won't engage. That's because it's been sitting there for a while, and sometimes the gear gets rested a bit on the shaft and it won't move. So I'll show you what to do to prevent that. Well, here's a starter from a snowblower motor again. This is off a Tecumseh engine. If you can get the starter off your snowblower, that's good. And I'll show you what to do if you can remove it yourself. Now what you do, once you've got it removed, is you pull this gear here, like this. You're going to see a shaft here with some threads or something like that on there. And you can spray some liquid wrench or WD-40 in there. So what that's going to do is keep the gear lubed and the shaft as well. So when you put your snowblower away for the season, the gear is not going to seize on the shaft. It's also going to prevent wear and tear because it's going to have a bit of lubrication in there. Sometimes what happens is it gets worn out inside there. Now don't put grease in there because what can happen is the grease can prevent the gear from coming out. So when your gear seizes to your shaft, what happens is the motor spins, but the gear won't pull out like that. Now I'll show you what to do if your starter is on your snowblower and you don't want to remove it. Now you'll notice on the snowblower here where the starter goes, there's a little wee hole right here. Now what I do is I grab my liquid wrench here, I stick it in that little hole there, I spin the engine over, but I leave the ignition switch off, which is by leaving the lever there all the way down because I don't want to start it up. I'll show you exactly how I do it. I only spin the motor for a few seconds, and while it's spinning I spray because then the gear is out of the shaft and the shaft gets lubed. So that's all I do. Then it's all lubed inside there. You don't need to remove the starter. Don't put the straw in too deep because it's going to catch the gear. And that's it. I do this on my snowblowers every year and I hardly have any problems with my starters. So if you follow these tips, it should extend the life of your snowblower starter. Things do wear out no matter how good you look after them, so eventually you do have to replace the starter. Now my last tip for today, and I mentioned this before, is if you have problems with snowblower tires that keep deflating themselves, the best way to repair that is by inserting a new tube inside the tire. I find that it fixes the problem once and for all. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for all the contributions. They're much appreciated, and we'll see you next week. Take care now.